Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is @ThePaddyPower, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather, or the gym.
Hello and welcome to this Monday Postcast. I'm Maddie Player. I'm joined by Nick Watts in the Racing Post studio. We've also got Tom Siegel and Paul Binfield on the line as well. Coming up, we're going to look back at a brilliant Aintree Festival and the Grand National itself, and we're looking forward to some good flat action as well, so plenty to cover coming up. But before we do, I'd just like to wind the clock back a little bit and listen to Tom Nugent's thoughts on the Grand National quite a while ago. Give this a listen.
One that just sticks out, and I hope to God he runs, because I'm not sure if he definitely will, is Tiger Roll for Gordon Elliott and Gigginstown. Of course, Gigginstown have made their opinions clear on if they think they're unfairly handicapped in any national with any runner, they simply won't show up. But if Tiger Roll was to get a fair weight in the eyes of the O'Leary brothers, I think he'd have a very good chance. He's a 50-1 poke at the moment. He's looking like he'll go for the cross country at Cheltenham. Of course, stamina's no issue. Won the 4-miler at Cheltenham last year. I think he'd just be interesting. He's got an official chase mark of 151 at the moment. Tiger Roll for me at 50-1 each way.
Tell me that's not impressive. Well done, Tom Nugent. Take a bow. Hello, everyone. Watsy, we were just talking about the Aintree Festival. You were there. Which days did you go and which winners did you back?
I went all 3 days, Maddie, and it was absolutely fantastic. Binners will testify that the weather on the first 2 days was absolutely atrocious. It was cold, it was wet, it was horrible, but still had a good time. The sun came out on Saturday for Grand National Day, which made it even better. A great finish to the Grand National, great tipping by Tom. And all 38 horses came back, which is just as much as you can ask for, really. So it's a fantastic 3 days. And anyone who says Cheltenham is the be-all and end-all, it's absolutely not. If you haven't tried it before, get yourself to Aintree. It's fantastic.
Right, couldn't have a better advertisement for Aintree than that. Tom, what did you make of the National as a whole? Obviously, Gordon Elliott and Gigginstown were both winning it for the second time. Davy Russell, you know, the oldest jockey in the race. What was your analysis?
Depressed. I thought, I don't know. Look, I used to love the National. It's not my favourite race anymore. I think they've lost the soul of it myself. I think it's a bit of a it's just a lottery race. If they've tried to make it a roulette game and they've succeeded. Now Tiger Roll, obviously everyone backed, clearly had a great chance. But for me, they're just one-off races now. It's not what the National was designed to be anymore. And to be honest, I found it a bit depressing when the Mullins and the Elliots had the 1, 2, 3, and nothing else was really seen with a chance.
We'll talk about the Mullins and the Elliott domination in just a minute, but that's from going from one reaction to the other. Why do you think it's different these days? Is it that they've changed the fences, or
yeah? I mean, he's 14 hands.
Handicapped?
Yeah, he's 14 hands high nearly. He's a little flat horse by authorite. He shouldn't be winning a Grand National. I know. People say it's each their own and whatever they like, but sometimes they've had to do what they've had to do to make the race fairer. But I just don't think it's the race it was. To me, it's just a total guesswork as to what's going to go, what's going to enjoy it, what's not going to not. The jumping's taken out of it. I mean, if you'd just seen Tiger Roll win the 4-miler last year, you would have said there's absolutely no way on God's earth he'll jump round the Aintree fence. He never touched a twig. I think he had one slight mistake. It's just, to me, it's not the race it was. But where I fully agree with Nick is the rest of the meeting I thought was excellent. I thought every single thing about Aintree is fantastic. It's just that the National, because I think it's probably me. I grew up being the biggest fan of the National has ever been. I've got the videos and videos of Nationals going back to 1980. And I just think the last 10 years, they're just different. They're just different to what they were. And I can't get my head around what's needed to be a national horse these days and what isn't. And I just think it's just slightly not the race it was. But look, I can't, Davy Russell's one of my all-time racing heroes. So for him to win, it was a great thing. Slightly depressed that it was Mullins again, or Elliott after the Irish race last week, where they, if Bellshill hadn't propped at the last, they'd had the first 5 home, wouldn't they? So I just think the whole, I don't know, it just, to be honest, I was out watching Reading play Sunderland and I came back in, saw the result, watched the race. There's just a little bit of a downer. That's maybe because I love the race so much and I'm looking forward to it. But, I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh, that's a race I'm going to watch again.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Binners, we'll move over to you. Initial thoughts, reaction on the Grand National?
Well, firstly, Maddie, it beggars belief that you've got me representing Paddy rather than Tom Nugent after that astounding tipping from my colleague. Astounding. Great race. I disagree with Tom. I still think it's a marvellous spectacle. Thoroughly enjoy it. And the winner, he travelled so well, and the way he went clear approaching the elbow was something to behold. He stayed on dourly, nearly got done on the line by a fag paper, but a marvellous spectacle.
Okay, superb. What's he just touching on this Elliott and Mullins dominance? Can we agree with Tom that it is a bit depressing in that aspect? But we did have, I guess, one for Arthur from a smaller stable winning for Scotland last year. Or is it something that we really need to start getting worried about and doing things to change? Or
there's not much we can do about it. If people send their horses to Mullins and Elliott, then they're going to carry on. I think it's a real shame that some good trainers have kind of been forced out of business. I mean, Charlie Swan couldn't make it pay, and obviously Isterbrack's rider, somebody of his calibre. You've got Cole Murphy as well, who Cheltenham Festival winning trainer, who's given up Joanna Morgan on the flat. If the calibre of these guys are having to give up because they're not getting any horses, I think that's a shame. And I think in Britain and Ireland, I can understand people wanting to have their horses trained by the best people, but there's so many good trainers out there who just don't get the ammunition. And
well said, Watsy. That's exactly what I think.
I
think
so,
it's spot on there. I think it's what the point is that jumps racing, when you and I were growing up, and Maddie and everyone, was for the small guy, wasn't it? It was for the little guy. We could all have a Denoli, or we could all sit around and watch a small trainer with a small horse that they bred in the backyard come and challenge. Now, if you're having Mullins, Elliott, Dom, first 5 they would have had in the Irish National, first 3 in the English National. How many wins did they have at Cheltenham? 20 nearly between them, and they don't turn up. They stave their horses for Punchestown. And Nicky Henderson has 6 winners of the Grade 1s or whatever it is at Aintree this week. I just think that jump racing was supposed to be a race that we could all, that's what's the essence of it, is that it was for the small guy. And now we've come to the stage where it's not for the small guy anymore. You're spending 600 grand on point-to-pointers, and they're selling them all to Mullins, Elliott, and Henderson.
Can we do anything about it, Tom? What do we do? We
can't do anything about it because the money. Because now it's become a pastime for the rich and for the Ryanair guys and JP and Rich Ritchie, the multimillionaires of this world. So that they are buying all the best horses. It's very, very difficult. Look at Paul Nicholls. I know he had 2 winners of Grade 1s at Aintree, but he's the best jump trainer I've ever seen, in my opinion. When he had Corto and all those horses, he did things that no other trainer has ever done. He kept Corto going for 6 years. He kept Denman going. He kept Neptune. All those horses we talk about, no other trainer has ever been able to do. He is absolutely, for me, the best trainer there is. But he's struggling at the moment because he hasn't got any owners. And I think that's the problem. I was reading the reports of the sales, for example, at Aintree over the weekend during the meeting, and they were spending fortunes on horses, and everyone was going to Gordon Elliott or Willie Mullins, and it wasn't Gigginstown buying them. And you sort of think, well, that's wrong. There's got to be a chance for Anthony Honeyball. Tom Lacey, what a brilliant festival Tom Lacey had. 2 winners, 2 bumper horses placed it. Why can't he get one of these good horses? You know what I mean? And I think that's a problem going forward. Everyone moans about the flat because of the dominance of Ballydoyle. I think we're getting just as bad on the jumps these days with Gordon and Willie. It's not their fault because they're brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I'm not having a go at them. They're the best trainers, some of the best trainers we've ever seen. They deserve every success they've got. But if they have 400 horses and then they're getting all the next best ones as well, it's just a little bit disappointing for the young guys. What incentive is there for Anthony Honeyball, Tom Lacey? Where are they going to find a good horse? Because there's every chance they're just as good.
It does put it into perspective, as Tom said, when Paul Nicholls is considered an underdog these days.
Yeah.
And we're kind of pleased to see him win a couple of Grade 1s at Aintree just to share it around. That's Paul Nicholls we're talking about, and that does underline it. And
a lot of people would say that those horses didn't really have any right to win those races, and he's done very, very well to get them to win. So it's a really important conversation. I'm glad we've had it, but we've got to go back to the National now. Anyone got any stories on horses that they thought were, real eye catchers that were perhaps particularly unlucky? And then we'll move on. What's anything catch your eye throughout the race?
Well, I think you've got to give credit to Annabelle Fly, because 2 outings ago he went to Perda at Leopardstown and he looked like he struggled to come back from that. So to be placed in the Gold Cup and then the Grand National, and I think he's only an 8-year-old, so he could well be coming back for more. Children's List was an interesting one. He ran very well for a long way. He's hardly been seen at all this season. He might be one that Mullins looks at and thinks, we could target him properly at this next year. But sorry to be boring because it's another Mullins horse, but I think if you wanted one to put on the radar already for next season, it would have to be Bellshill. He looks made for the race. He jumped fantastically well in terrible ground in the Irish National, bar a kind of rear jump at the last when he was apparently put off by somebody in a fluorescent jacket. So he's run really well at Aintree before in like graded hurdles. He's got all the class going. I'd be amazed if they didn't, target him at the race next season. He'd be an ideal candidate, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned Children's List. He was one on my radar. It was only his 5th run over fences. He was absolutely cantering most of the way round. Tom?
Annabelle Fly, for me, I thought he was given the strangest ride I've ever seen in a national. He must have gone 20 lengths wider than everything else. Surely would have been involved if it if he'd have been ridden like Tiger Roll was. He might be a Gold Cup horse. Well, he probably will never be as well handicapped again, obviously, after his run at Cheltenham. So that probably takes him. I thought the Dutchman was going really well for a long way myself. I thought he was the type of horse that he looked to take to it. Colin Tizard has a tremendous record at Aintree, doesn't he? I mean, incredible. All his horses tend to come to life there, but I'm struggling. I'm struggling to find anything. Obviously, Pleasant Company travelled like the wrath of God as well, so he's got to be on there. But take the first 4 out. They're 21 lengths ahead of Milan's Bar, who's 12 lengths ahead of Red to Riches, who's 7 lengths ahead of the 7th. So it really was a 4-horse race from a long way out, wasn't it? It wasn't like there was anything. You were looking back, looking for something to come. Bar the Dutchman, I didn't see a national winner, or a horse that I'd be taking out. Alpha Days Oboe went well for a long way, didn't he? And before he hit the chair, he looked like he was taken to it. But it was sort of having had a go at the national. It was sort of a bit of a national from the past where they, the first 3 or 4 finished miles ahead of the rest. But I think trying to predict which ones they're going to be these days is very hard.
Okay, Binner's prices on next year's race and any eye catchers for you?
Well, we've got Tiger Roll, the great winner, 20-1 to repeat next year, Maddie. 25 Annabelle Fly, who the other 2 lads have both mentioned was an eye catcher. He must be some horse, Maddie. He was badly hampered at the first as well and clattered the 5th. Tom's already mentioned how wide he went. He must be some animal. And also at 25-1, 1 for Arthur, Pleasant Company, 33 total recall, Black Lion, 40 bar. Don't know if he was unlucky, but See You at Midnight was going particularly well until the 3rd last. Didn't appear to stay the 4 miles 4, but I think there's a big staying handicap chase this or next season in Scottish Sorcerer Sandy Thompson's Charge.
Okay, fantastic. Also, interesting you mentioned 1 for Arthur there. I love that horse. Can't wait to see him back. We'll go for a quick break now, and then we'll have a look at some of the Aintree highlights.
Success ain't earned, it's bought. That's why at Paddy Power, we paid the big bucks for the best tech nerds in the world to develop our new, fastest ever app. Download the new app from the App Store or Play Store now. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to this Monday Postcast. As promised, we're going to look back at the rest of Aintree. Now, we've had a bit of a grumble about it, but equally it was a great week. No, we haven't.
Don't be mean. Don't be mean. I just had a bit of a grumble about the National. I think the rest of the week, as I said, was fantastic. I love every minute of it.
Okay, we've had a grumble about the National, but we're being all positive. It was a brilliant week of racing. Nicky Henderson has done superbly well. Just one of the names to do well. What's a horse or a particular incident that you were pleased with, a highlight for you?
Well, it's great to see Mike Bite win. I expected him to. I thought Nicky Henderson wouldn't bother sending him there if he wasn't giving him the right vibes, so I kind of expected him to do that. I still think it was an immense effort to do it on the back of what was a hard race at Cheltenham. Really interesting, he beat Bristol de May. He put in a much better run than he did in the race last season. I think he's had a breathing op. And they're on about going a slightly different route with Mike Bite next year, maybe go to Haydock, but on Haydock, traditional November ground, definitely suit Bristol de May, possibly better than Mike Bite, but he was fantastic. I thought We Have a Dream looked really good. Again, how he'll progress is difficult to say. Defi Desai won the race last season. He's done absolutely nothing this season, but the way that Bouverdaire won the champion hurdle this season, I think Isaac Swade and Simon Munir will be, thinking, well, we could maybe have a crack at the champion. If you wanted one to put in the tracker, I thought Lost in Translation put in a really good run behind Black Op. I think he might be going chasing next season. He's one to look forward to. So it was good performances all the way through the 3 days, and it was lovely to see Mike Bite come out and win like that. And he just, he's all class. And who's saying he's quirky now? He hasn't. He's looked anything but quirky in his last few starts. He runs straight, he runs true, and he just looks a machine, doesn't he? Yeah,
that race is a bit of a graveyard for horses that have done well in the Gold Cup, apparently. Ben, is any prices on Mike Bite to do the Triple Crown bonus next year? And We Have a Dream for the champion?
Yeah, for the Triple Crown, Maddie, we put Mike Bite in at 25-1, and after the way he's run the last couple of times, you'd have to think he might have a chance of doing it. And then in the Champion Hurdle, we have a dream. None of the first three from the Triumph turned up at Aintree, but we've still and we put him in at 25-1. But he looks a lovely horse.
I was quite surprised. I know we've had that recent bad record of 5-year-olds in it, but 25-1 could be quite a big price. Tom, what was your main Aintree highlight?
There were loads. As I say, I thought there were loads of good performances. One of them would be Santini. Absolutely love that horse. I think he's a Gold Cup horse of the future without a shadow of a doubt. He had an incredibly hard race at Cheltenham, and he is just so tough. He just never gives. I just loved his attitude at Aintree. I'd backed the second, and I thought she was coming to beat him, and he just fought her off. I just think he's a superstar. Black Op, I was impressed with. I know what he was talking about, lost in translation. Then Tom George's horses were awful at Aintree. They all got lapped, bar
Hadn't
one.
had a winner since Sunny Hill Boy.
I was desperate to take him on for that reason. I thought they were running terribly, but I thought Black Op did really well to win. And a horse that I love and will be backing to win maybe a National of the Future or maybe the Hennessy next year is a horse called Thomas Patrick that won the handicap chase. I just think he's a 6-year-old. He just stays, he jumps, he does everything right in his races, and I think he will continue to improve, as I say, for the incredibly impressive Tom Lacey. I don't think there's a trainer in Britain, bar Henderson, that's going better than him at the moment. I think he had 4 runners at Aintree. He had 2 winners, Jester Jet and Thomas Patrick, and the second in the bumper, in the mare's bumper, and the fourth in the Colts bumper, in the Colts and Geldings bumper. So I love that horse, Thomas Patrick. I think a race like the Hennessy, where he can get out in front jumping, I think he'll be a player.
Excellent. Binners, any prices on Thomas Patrick or Santini for the future?
Well, I've got Santini, Maddie, at 12-1 for the RSA chase. Now that one's 12 from 16. And I'll just see if I can find Thomas Patrick in the betting. I'm not sure.
That's a tester, Binners.
Yeah.
That was a tester. If you can find that one, Binners, I'll be very impressed. This will be a Tom Nugent-like performance if you can get this one.
Yeah, I can't emulate Tom Nugent.
No, never.
I haven't got a prize for Tommy Patrick.
No worries. Right, we'll go to competition time now. Every week we give you the chance to win a £25 or €25 free bet from Paddy Power. Last week's winner was Daniel from Liverpool. Well done. To be in with a chance of winning this week, simply tweet your answer to the following question using the hashtag Postcast, and we'll announce the winner on Friday's show. The question is, how old is Grand National winning jockey Davy Russell?
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet then next week. T&Cs apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to the Monday Postcast. I'm Maddie Plell, joined by Nick Watts, Tom Siegel and Paul Binfield. We've covered Aintree and the National. We'll move on to the Craven meeting, which gets underway at Newmarket on Tuesday. Early thoughts on the feature race of this week. Thursday's Bet365 Craven Stakes. Anybody? This sees the return of Roaring Lion, the Royal Lodge winner over course and distance. And there's plenty of other exciting horses to look forward to as well. Binners, take it away with the Craven betting for us.
Well, I love the Craven meeting, Maddie. I live fairly close to Newmarket, and I'm going to cycle a fair way there each of the 3 days to get rid of some of the beer I put away at Aintree in the evening. But the Craven Stakes, 8-13 Roaring Lion, who you mentioned so well, 100-30 Glorious Journey, 6 White Mocha, 8 Massar, 10 Hay Gammon, and it's 14 Bar.
Okay, Tom, getting excited for the flat now?
Love it. Yeah, really love them. We'll probably go on to it in a minute, but I think a lot of people will be rewinding the old National. I've been watching those classic trials from Leopardstown on Saturday over and over again. We will have seen loads of Grade 1 winners there. But yeah, the Craven it's one of my favourite. I love this, as Binner says, this time of the season. It's like when the start of the jumps, when you get to those Cheltenham meetings at the start of the season, that it just brings it all back. And I'm looking forward to seeing Roaring Lion again. He was exceptional last year, wasn't he? Problem might have been a bit unlucky not to win the Racing Post Trophy. And he looks quite a bit ahead of his opposition on Thursday. It is, but it's first run of the season. Johnny Godson has a very good record in trials, though, doesn't he? He likes using trials for his Guineas horses, Kingman and his 1,000 Guineas winners Lahan. They all tend to use a trial, so he's pretty good in them. The filly won the trial and then Elgwyn last year, so I'm I'm looking forward to seeing Royal Lion. I expect him to win, but he's not a betting price, 4-7.
Weren't you a fan of Massar, the Solario winner?
Yeah, I like Massar too. He was a little bit disappointing, but last time, wasn't he? But he's been running on. He sort of ran really well behind Mendelssohn, didn't he, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile on firm ground, where he was unlucky. Actually, he got trapped in behind and then stayed on at the finish. I think he's quite a good horse. He just has to bounce back from being beaten 425 million lengths in a race on dirt in Meydan. Now that probably is irrelevant because it was on dirt in Meydan, and he was odds on that day, so he's obviously been expected to do quite well. I think he's a lot better than that, but on form, he's quite a bit behind Roaring Lion.
Okay, what's he?
Yeah, I think Roaring Lion will probably win, cement his credentials for the 2000. His kind of form does tie in with another horse I was keen to mention. I'm sure we'll come to Leopardstown in a minute, because in the Royal Lodge he beat a horse called Nelson of Aidan O'Brien's. It's worth remembering, when Nelson ran in that race, Aidan O'Brien's runners got held up coming over in the plane. I think his was the first race, so he didn't have very long to get off the plane and start racing. So
good knowledge, Watsy. That is awesome.
He's putting us all to shame, isn't he?
Binners couldn't manage Tom Nugent, but you've just done it.
There we go. It's praise indeed. But,
Amazing.
Yeah, no. So I think you can upgrade that run, and he gave Roaring Lion a really good race, and then of course Roaring Lion has gone on to frank the form, but so has Nelson. I think he is underrated slightly because he ran in the Royal Lodge, and everyone says Aidan doesn't run his best 2-year-olds in the Royal Lodge, so he's consequently not at the top of the pecking order. And Ryan Moore doesn't ride him that often either. He didn't ride him on Saturday in the Ballysacks. I think he was on the Pentagon, who was quite well beaten, but I'm sure we'll come on for that. But I don't think you can argue with the way Nelson won. I thought he won a shade cosily. I thought it was just hands and heels to beat Delano Roosevelt. He keeps getting the job done. He's almost a certain stayer. He's by Frankel out of an Irish Oaks winner. And I still think you can get nice double figure price on him for the Derby. I'm sure that's where he's headed, and probably going for the Derrinstown next. I think Aidan O'Brien said all those first three will go for the Derrinstown. I'll be really interested to see which one Ryan Moore goes for next time, whether he sticks to the Pentagon, whether he switches. So it kind of underhyped Aidan O'Brien horse, which you don't get very often, but one that I've always liked as a 2-year-old, and I like the way he won at the weekend.
Okay, that gives us a nice transition into Leopardstown on Saturday. Tom, Gustav Klimt, he was pretty impressive as well. I backed the horse Imaging, and I thought I was going to collect, and he flew late on ground he wouldn't have liked. What did you make of him?
Well, the thing to point out about those trials on Saturday, if you look through years gone by, they're just gallops for Aidan O'Brien's horses. He's had loads of horses finish back. We'll go on to the 1,000 guineas trial in a minute, but they're just simply not races for his horses. They are a way of getting his horses right and ready for the season coming up. So to sit down there and dissect the form, I think, is irrelevant. So therefore, for Gustav Klimt to win as he did, I thought was really impressive. Now, beating a 98 rated horse and 2 stablemates doesn't, to me, make him a 4-1 shot to win a Guineas against proper Grade 1 horses, Group 1 horses. But nonetheless, he will come on, all of his horses that ran on Saturday will come on £10-15. They always do. I mean, I'll talk to you about the 1,000 guineas horse now, I Can Fly. Last year, if you look at last year's horses, Winter got beaten in the race. Roly Poly, in her start of the season last year, was 6th or 7th in the Nell Gwyn. Legatissimo was 8th on his debut. Homecoming Queen got a rating of 75 on her debut when she started and went on to win the Guineas by 9 lengths. It's totally irrelevant to how they're going to perform. So I was really impressed with Gustav Klimt. And going back to the fillies race, I thought I Can Fly ran a massive trial for the race. She ran better than Roly Poly did, Homecoming Queen did, Legatissimo did. I know that was David Watchman on her debut. So don't rule her out by any stretch of the imagination of being a Guineas horse. They tend to run their 1,000 Guineas horse in that race if they haven't got a standout horse, a minding or whatever. And Clemmy's out now, so I would expect I Can Fly to go to the Guineas as their number 1, and I think she's 20-1 now, and I think that's I thought she ran a cracking trial. I would put her forward as my horse to follow for the week. And I thought, you can't, Gustav Klimt, what can you say? I mean, he won his trial. He's going to stay a mile. He probably is full brother to Mars, who stayed 1.25 miles, maybe 1.5 miles. So you might even see him in the Derby later on. But he's a proper horse. And I think all of those ones, as Nick's pointed out, in the Derrinstown Stud trial, they were literally just away days for them. None of them will have done anything, and I think I wouldn't rule out the Pentagon. He was beaten 8 lengths, and not many Derby winners get beaten 8 lengths on their debut, but I think it's just totally irrelevant. I think they're just what Aidan O'Brien is different from other trainers. He uses the racecourse to condition his horses, and that's what we all saw on Saturday. So a horse like Gustav Klimt and I Can Fly, me specifically, are the horses I would be looking at and thinking they're probably going to be great Group 1 winners without a doubt this season.
Nice words there from Tom. Binners, any betting on the 1,000, 2,000 guineas quickly?
Yeah, 1,000 guineas. Tom's quite right. I Can Fly is 20 to 1. After people listen to this, I don't think she will be, but we make Happily 7 to 2 favourite. Clemmy, who looks doubtful, is still 6 to 1, along with stable companion September. It's 10 Voracious and Wind Chimes on the same price, 11 bar. And on the 2,000 guineas, Gustav Klimt, we went 11 to 2 after the Leopardstown race. He's now 4 to 1 favourite. Then it's 9 to 2 Saxon Warrior, 7 Elegam and Roaring Lion, 10 Expert Eye, 14 Mendelssohn, and it's 16 bar.
Just to add something in, Maddie, it's interesting. Just the trends guys will be saying, "Oh, Gustav Klimt, he's had a run." All Aidan O'Brien's 8 winners have gone straight to Newmarket. Gustav Klimt's an outlier in that way, but the difference between him and those ones, and all the other 8 winners, is that he had a curtailed 2-year-old season. We didn't see him after July. He picked up an injury after winning the July Stakes, and so therefore, I would imagine that Aidan wanted to condition him on the racetrack rather than he hadn't done what the other ones had already done. So I wouldn't rule that against him. And bar minding, all Aidan's and Coolmore's other winners of the 1,000 guineas have had a run in converse to the 2,000 guineas.
That's interesting.
Do you see what I mean? The Homecoming Queens, the Legatissimos, all those sort of ones have had a run. Winter, they'd all had a run. The ones that hadn't had a run have to be exceptional for the 1,000. So Happily has to be a superstar to win it for me, and as she's more likely to be an Oaks winner, I think they'll have I think the prices between her and I Can Fly are about as far out as they could be. I think they should almost be the same price. I think come the day, I Can Fly will be nearly favourite, or not nearly favourite, but she'll be 6 or 7 to 1, and the Happily horse will be about the same price.
That's really, really interesting there. Going back to the Craven meeting, any horse that you're particularly looking forward to? Nick?
I've got a couple for Newbury. Newbury's 2-dayer on Friday and Saturday. There's a really interesting maiden on Friday, Filly's Maiden. I think the first daughter of Snow Fairy hits the track, called Belle de Neige, trained by Ed Dunlop. And there's another one by Dubarry out of Dar Me, trained by John Gosden, called La Di Da. They both run in, I think it's a 1.2 mile maiden. Could be a really interesting race, that. And there's a 2 mile 2 handicap at Newbury on Friday's card as well. And
hold on a minute, you can't go for the jump race on the start of the flat one.
Well, it's actually trained by Mullins as well. It's a Mullins and Ritchie horse. It's called Law Girl, who won over hurdles during the winter. She's never run on the flat for a Willie Mullins since she came over, since she raced in France in her younger days. Like I said, Ritchie owned horse. They've booked Ryan Moore for it already. I think she's off a handicap mark of 94. Now, Willie Mullins would be a rare visitor in the summer season to Newbury. So if she takes her chance in that handicap,
she'll be 4 to 7.
Could be, but just an interesting horse, I think, for maybe for Friday and for the future.
Okay, Tom.
Difficult, really. Difficult because it's all.
There's loads of good races.
Yeah, there's loads of good races. The problem about the start of the flat, like the start of any season, is that it's all a little bit depends on fitness. But the one horse, my horse to follow for the whole season, is a horse called Andre Fabre's Le Bravido. And if he runs in the Avenant, and the vibes are that he is going to run in the Avenant, I cannot wait to see him. I think he's an absolute superstar. He was desperately unlucky to lose the French Guineas last year. He was beaten a short head by Bramato, but he was drawn miles away from him. He was drawn right out in the middle, and Trap 3 beat Trap 8 and Trap 2 on the, and with really good horses in behind him, Order of the Garter and horses like that. And then he went to the Jersey Stakes, and I think he was just about the only horse that raced up the middle to win all week. He raced up the middle, and Spirit of Valor was Trap 20, Mubtasim Trap 15, Parfait Trap 18, Dreamcastle Trap 19, so on and so forth. Were all the ones that followed. They were all raced on a different side of the track. He did incredibly well to win. He beat his side by miles. And so he's dropping back to 6 for the Avenant, and it's probably a get-him-ready race. But I love that horse, and I think he's going to be one of the best milers we'll see all season.
Strong words again. I'm really excited about Hay Jonesy in the free handicap. He was a bit of an eye-catcher last season. A quick word on Saturday's big race, one of the biggest betting races of the year, the Coral Scottish Grand National. Aintree absentee Vicente, of course, going for the hat-trick. Binners, he's sure to be prominent in the market.
He certainly is, Maddie. You know you're betting. It's 10-1 Vicente.
I'm not sure it was that challenging, Binners. I wouldn't give me that much credit.
Well done, Maddie. It's Tom Nugent again. You found the last two winners of the race.
Maddie, you are the female Tom Nugent. Anyway, we've got 10 Vicente, 12 Valley Optic, and Beware the Bear. Vintage Clouds, 14 Doing Fine and Missed Approach. And you can have 16 the rest.
Can he do it, Watsy?
Yeah, he can. I don't really know why they ever thought about running him in the Grand National Aintree, because you've won the Scottish National twice. It seems an obvious place to go. I know Mr. Hemmings loves having runners at Aintree, but definitely a blessing that he's missed that and goes to Air Fresh. If I had to pick one, Beware the Bear. I backed him in the Ultima at Cheltenham and he plugged on into fourth. He looks such a slow horse. Even with the ground in his favour, he couldn't get going in time to threaten in the Ultima, but he did stay on well up the hill. I think he's made for long distances. He probably even wants further than the trip is at Ayr. If he can get his jumping together, and the longer trip should help him in that respect, then and there's a little bit of digging the ground, that would suit him as well, then I think he'll go very well.
OK, Beware the Bear. Tom?
I noticed that Willie Mullins doesn't have a runner. Gordon Elliott has two, so they'll finish 1 and 2. It just depends which way Folsom Blue and Fagan decide to finish.
OK. Binners, any final thoughts on the Scottish National?
Well, I'm hoping Colin Tizard runs size in Tennessee, Maddie. Finished third on his last 2 starts at Cheltenham, including at the festival where he found Raf Vinden too powerful in the National Hunt Chase. And that form could be good enough for him to land Scotland's extravaganza.
Yeah.
Scotland's extravaganza, very good.
Miss Parfois
to use that one.
Form.
That one's coming out.
Scotland. Well, on that
Saturday's post, Tom.
That'll be in there. Don't worry about that, Binners.
Fantastic.
On that bombshell, we'll look at this in much more detail on Friday's show. But that's about all from us lot. We'll see you then.
Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is ThePaddyPower, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather, or the gym.